Hi, Dr. Andrea Maxim, naturopathic doctor and the creator of the Maxim movement. This is part 2 of my Parasite series. And the last video, part 1, we talked about sort of what the categories of parasites are. And we're looking predominantly or talking about amoebas and protozoa. So very, very microscopic, environmentally found parasites. And again, if you're exposed to kids, animals, food, or water, you're getting exposed to these bugs. So we can check that one off the list. Now, I did mention very briefly about testing. So the problem with testing for parasites is, as I mentioned, the gold standard is to do a stool test. The problem is 9 out of 10 times you'll get that stool test and it'll show that there's a negative result. So there's a few reasons why that could be happening. Either number one, the lab is using the wrong markers to test for your strain of parasites. They might not be familiar with the ones that you're being exposed to, or it just might not be commonplace to be testing for those. Because remember, we're looking for microscopic ones, and a lot of labs are trying to rule out pinworm, or Shigella, or Bartonella, or H. pylori as a parasite, and they might not be looking at your particular strain. The other thing we have to think about is where they want to live. So if it's a liver fluke, they're living in the liver. If it's a certain type of protozoa or amoeba that has an affinity for the bloodstream because that's where the nutrients are, then they're not going to be in your stool. So one of two things can happen. Either you can do the stool test and just hope for the best, knowing that they may not actually be living in the intestinal tract, or two, you could actually start doing a parasite cleanse or detox and see if you can actually start getting them purged and out of the system, and then test in the stool. Because by that time, the body is going to start to eliminate a lot of the carcasses, if I can say, and get the parasites out of you, and then you might be able to detect them more in the stool. So if you do get a negative test back, please don't think that, oh, it can't be parasites. Quite often, those tests are not really going to show much, especially if you haven't started provoking them to get out of the system. And then the last thing that I really wanted to talk about on this video is the type of food that they really feed on. And it's really sugar. And we know that predominantly, at least in North America, so many ingredients in our regular daily foods, whether processed or otherwise, can usually be very high in sugar. And this is their number one fuel source. But you have to remember that they'll basically thrive off of anything. So anything you're eating, they're going to be taking away from you, which will start causing some of the signs and symptoms that we talked in part 1. On a side note, because I did mention parasite cleanses, you have to really be careful about the type of parasite cleansing you're doing, and if you're doing it all on your own without the proper management with a healthcare practitioner, like myself. So we're going to talk about that in the last video, part 3, so I hope you stay tuned. Of course, questions or concerns or anything that you have for me, definitely post those comments below, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and remember, I'm Dr. Andrea Maxim, naturopathic doctor, the creator of the Maxim movement, and you can visit me at www.themaximmovement.com.